The laughing transmission. The Icebreaker 67B wasn't the first ship to vanish in Antarctica's frozen wasteland, but it was certainly the first to send back a message consisting entirely of laughter. The transmission lasted exactly 23 seconds, contained no words, and featured 5 distinct human voices, all crew members laughing in a way that the receiving station in Johannesburg described as disturbingly euphoric. Nobody laughs like that in Antarctica. It's cold, the Wi-Fi is terrible, and the only indigenous wildlife are microscopic extremophiles and the occasional lost penguin with an overinflated sense of adventure. The message was logged, analyzed, and ultimately filed under atmospheric anomalies, because that's what humans do when confronted with things that don't fit neatly into their understanding of the world. They create new folders. Dr. Helena Wittmann had been 43 when she first heard the recording. Now at 51, the 8 intervening years had done little to diminish her obsession with it. The laughter had a strange quality, a tonality that reminded her of the way her mother used to laugh when Ellie was a child, a sound that didn't suggest amusement so much as revelation. Something had been discovered aboard that ship, something that had changed the crew in a fundamental way moments before they vanished. "You still listening to your giggly ghosts?" asked Thomas Blackwood, sliding a mug of something that smelled vaguely of coffee across her desk. Thomas was 39, too handsome for his own good, and possessed a metabolism that allowed him to eat whatever he wanted without consequences, 3 traits that made Ellie irrationally annoyed with him on principle. "They're not ghosts," she said, accepting the mug without looking up from her screen. "And I'd prefer if you didn't trivialize the disappearance of 5 people. 6, Thomas corrected. "Captain Norton makes 6. Norton wasn't on the transmission. Maybe he was the one recording the audio while the ship's communication system was simultaneously transmitting. That's not how radio works." Thomas shrugged, perching on the edge of her desk in a way that threatened her carefully organized stack of papers. "All I'm saying is that people have been disappearing in Antarctica since humans first landed there. It's a hostile environment. People don't disappear while laughing. Maybe they found a really good joke book." Ellie was about to explain exactly why that theory was idiotic when her computer chimed with an incoming message. The sender was simply listed as Antarctic Survey, Priority Alpha. "Well, that's not ominous at all," Thomas muttered, leaning over her shoulder as she opened it. The message contained no text, just a single image file. When Ellie clicked on it, both she and Thomas fell silent. The photograph showed a section of ice that had been partially excavated. Beneath the translucent surface was a massive shape, something that looked like it had been pulled directly from medieval manuscripts or fantasy novels. Even through the ice, its form was unmistakable: the elongated neck, the reptilian head, the folded wings, and the powerful limbs. That's a dragon," Thomas whispered. "Don't be ridiculous," Ellie replied automatically, though her mind was racing through every possible explanation. "It's likely some sort of marine mammal preserved in the ice. Possibly a new species. Wings are probably fins, and the horns could be calcified growths due to age or disease." Thomas pointed at the screen. "And I suppose that's just a random collection of stones arranged in a pattern that happens to look exactly like scales." Before Ellie could formulate a suitably scientific dismissal, another message arrived. This one contained text. "Dr. Wittmann, your presence is requested at McMurdo Station immediately. Transport has been arranged. Please confirm below." That was followed by a string of authorization codes that made even Thomas straighten up and step back from the desk. "Those are military intelligence codes," he said quietly. "How would you know that?" "I dated a cryptographer at MIT." When Ellie raised an eyebrow, he added, "What?" "I have depths." "Like a puddle has depths," she muttered, already composing her reply. Whatever was in that ice, it wasn't a dragon. But it was something important enough to warrant immediate attention from people who typically didn't care about paleontological discoveries. As she typed her confirmation, she couldn't help but wonder if she was finally going to discover what had made the crew of the Icebreaker 67B laugh. The Antarctic Dragon, Part 2, The Impossible Discovery. 72 hours later, Ellie was bundled in more layers than an overprotective mother would put on a child in winter, stepping off a military transport plane onto the frozen runway of McMurdo Station. The cold hit her like a physical force, making her gasp despite her preparations. Her breath crystallized instantly, tiny ice particles dancing in front of her face before being whisked away by the wind. Dr. Wittmann. A figure approached, their face obscured by a heavy parka hood. I'm Dr. Katsuro Mori, Director of Special Projects. Welcome to the end of the world. Dr. Mori was 56, with silver streaks in his black hair and a kind of face that seemed permanently set in an expression of polite skepticism. As they traveled across the ice in a specially designed vehicle, something that looked like a cross between a tank and a recreational vehicle, he explained the situation. 3 weeks ago, a routine ice core sampling mission detected an anomaly approximately 2 miles from their original planned site. They diverted to investigate and discovered, well, I think, impossible, is the only appropriate word. Nothing is impossible in science, Dr. Mori, Ellie said automatically. Just improbable. Then prepare yourself for the most improbable discovery in human history. The vehicle crested a ridge, and Ellie's breath caught in her throat. Spread out before them was a massive research encampment, far larger than any Antarctic expedition she'd ever heard of. Dozens of structures had been erected on the ice, surrounding a central area covered by what appeared to be a pressurized dome. Vehicles and people moved about with purpose, and the entire site was illuminated by powerful lights that pushed back against the perpetual darkness of the Antarctic winter. How long has this been here? She asked. 16 days, Dr. Mori replied. Once the preliminary findings were confirmed, resources were reallocated from everywhere. As they approached the encampment, Ellie noticed something odd about the ice beneath them. It had a bluish tint, different from the stark white of normal Antarctic ice. What's causing that coloration? She asked. Dr. Mori's expression was unreadable behind his protective goggles. That's what we brought you here to help determine. The central dome turned out to be a sophisticated research facility that had been rapidly assembled over the excavation site. As Ellie followed Dr. Mori through a series of airlocks and security checkpoints, she was struck by the strange mixture of scientific equipment and military hardware. People in lab coats worked alongside others in unmarked tactical gear, and everyone moved with the same tense efficiency. Before I show you this, Dr. Mori said, pausing before the final door, I need to know that you understand the importance of discretion in this matter. I signed 7 different non-disclosure agreements before boarding the plane. Yes, but those are just papers. I need to know that you understand. Something in his tone made Ellie pay closer attention. What exactly am I about to see? Instead of answering, Dr. Mori pushed open the door. The excavation site was a perfect circle, approximately 50 meters in diameter. The ice had been carefully removed layer by layer, creating a bowl-shaped depression that descended about 15 meters at its deepest point. Suspended above the site was a network of walkways and observation platforms, allowing researchers to view the discovery from multiple angles without disturbing the ice. And there, perfectly preserved in the translucent blue ice, was a dragon. Not a fossil. Not a mammal with unusual calcified growths. A dragon. Its serpentine body stretched nearly 30 meters from snout to tail. Massive wings, partially unfurled, were visible beneath the ice, their membrane-like structure preserved in shocking detail. Its scales, if that's what they were, had a metallic quality, reflecting the light in iridescent patterns that seemed to shift and change as Ellie moved along the walkway. But most disturbing was its face. The eyes were closed, giving it the appearance of something merely sleeping rather than preserved for thousands of years. Its mouth was partially open, revealing rows of teeth that would make a great white shark reconsider its life choices. This isn't possible, Ellie whispered. That's what we all said, Dr. Mori replied. And yet, here it is. How old? Carbon dating puts it at approximately 8,645 years, give or take a decade. Ellie's scientific mind raced through possibilities. It must be some kind of elaborate hoax. We verified the ice strata. It's genuine. This creature has been here since before recorded human civilization. Then it must be some unknown species that happens to resemble mythological dragons. That was our working theory, Dr. Mori said, until 3 days ago. He gestured to a nearby technician, who handed him a tablet. Listen to this. He pressed play, and a sound filled the dome, a steady, rhythmic thumping that Ellie instantly recognized. That's a heartbeat, she said. Yes. It's heartbeat. Ellie looked from the tablet to the frozen creature and back again. That's not possible. Nothing could survive being frozen for that long. And yet, we have been recording this heartbeat, approximately 1 beat every 28 hours, since we first set up equipment. It's alive, Dr. Wittmann. Somehow, it's alive. The connection. The implications were staggering. If this creature was indeed alive, it represented a form of suspended animation far beyond anything modern science had achieved. The research potential alone was revolutionary. Why me? Ellie finally asked. I'm a paleontologist, not a cryptozoologist or a mythologist. Dr. Mori's expression grew more serious. Because you're the world's foremost expert on the Icebreaker 67B incident. What does that have to do with this? He handed her the tablet again, this time displaying a map. The icebreaker disappeared 23 miles from where we're standing. Before Ellie could process this information, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Red emergency lights flashed, and personnel began moving with increased urgency. What's happening? She demanded. Dr. Mori was already checking his communications device. The ice is shifting. Something's changing. As if on cue, a loud crack echoed through the dome, the sound amplified by the enclosed space. All eyes turned to the dragon. A spiderweb of fractures was spreading across the ice directly above its massive chest. Everyone out, someone shouted. Evacuation Protocol Alpha. But Ellie couldn't move. She was transfixed by what she was seeing. As the ice continued to crack, a faint glow became visible from within the dragon's chest, a pulsing blue light that synchronized perfectly with the recorded heartbeat. Dr. Wittmann. Dr. Mori grabbed her arm. We need to leave now. The evacuation was swift but chaotic. Scientists and military personnel poured out of the dome as the cracks in the ice spread wider. From the safety of a nearby observation bunker, they watched through reinforced windows as the creature's prison began to fail. Has this happened before? Ellie asked, her voice barely audible over the sound of creaking ice and emergency sirens. Never, Dr. Mori replied. The ice has been stable since we arrived. This started the moment you entered the dome. The blue glow was getting brighter, casting eerie shadows on the walls of the excavation. The heartbeat, now broadcast through external speakers, was accelerating, 1 beat every 20 minutes, then 15, then 10. It knows I'm here, Ellie whispered. That's impossible. It's been dormant for 8,000 years. I know. She turned to face him. But the crew of the Icebreaker 67B found something out there. They discovered this creature, didn't they? That's why they were laughing. That's why they disappeared. Dr. Mori's silence was answer enough. A young technician burst into the bunker. Sir. The thermal readings are off the charts. The creature's body temperature is rising rapidly. Through the window, they could see steam beginning to rise from the excavation site. The ancient ice was melting, but not from external heat, the dragon was warming itself from within. How long until it's free? Dr. Mori asked. At this rate? 6 hours, maybe less. Ellie pressed her hand against the cold window. The dragon's eyes were still closed, but the blue glow from its chest was now visible even through the thickening steam. She thought about the laughter on that recording, 5 voices filled with wonder and joy, as if they had discovered something miraculous. We need to contact the outside world, she said. Other scientists, the media, everyone needs to know about this. Absolutely not. Dr. Mori's voice was sharp. This discovery is classified at the highest levels. If this creature poses any kind of threat. Threat? Ellie spun around. This is the discovery of the century. A living dragon, preserved for millennia. The biological implications alone could revolutionize our understanding of life itself. And if it wakes up angry? If it decides humanity is a threat to be eliminated? The bunker fell silent except for the rhythmic thumping of the dragon's heart, now beating once every 5 minutes. Through the observation window, they could see the last of the ancient ice beginning to give way. There's something else, Dr. Mori said quietly. Something we haven't told you about the Icebreaker 67B. Ellie waited. They didn't just disappear. We found their ship 2 weeks ago, buried in the ice about a mile from here. The crew was still aboard, perfectly preserved. They were all smiling, Dr. Wittmann. All of them. And there was something in their hands, a scale. A single, iridescent scale that matches the creature's exactly. The heartbeat accelerated again. 4 minutes between beats. 3. 2. It's waking up, the technician whispered. In the excavation dome, the steam cleared for a moment, and they could see the dragon's massive form clearly. Its eyes were no longer closed. 2 brilliant blue orbs, each the size of a dinner plate, stared directly at the observation bunker. Directly at Ellie. And for the first time in 8 years, she understood why the crew of the Icebreaker 67B had been laughing. The awakening. The dragon's gaze was unlike anything Ellie had ever experienced. It wasn't the predatory stare of a wild animal or the empty look of a primitive creature. There was intelligence there, ancient, vast, and unmistakably alien. Yet somehow, impossibly, it felt familiar. Everyone needs to evacuate the area immediately, Dr. Mori barked into his radio. Full retreat to the secondary perimeter. But Ellie couldn't move. The dragon's eyes held her transfixed, and in that blue glow, she began to see memories. Not her own memories, but something older. Images flashed through her mind, vast cities of ice and crystal, creatures of impossible beauty soaring through aurora-lit skies, and beings, not quite human but not entirely alien, living in harmony with dragons like this one. Dr. Wittmann. Dr. Mori shook her shoulder. We need to go. The dragon's heartbeat had synchronized with her own now, each pulse sending waves of warmth through the observation bunker despite the reinforced walls between them. The last of the ancient ice fell away with a thunderous crack, and the creature slowly, gracefully, began to move. Its massive wings unfurled, each membrane shimmering with patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid starlight. Steam rose from its scales as millennia of cold evaporated in moments. When it lifted its great head and looked around the excavation site, Ellie could swear she saw confusion in those ancient eyes, the look of someone waking in an unfamiliar place after a very long sleep. It's beautiful, she whispered. The dragon's head turned toward the sound of her voice. Through tons of ice, rock, and reinforced barriers, it looked directly at her again. And then, impossibly, it smiled. Not the terrifying grin of a predator, but something gentler. Almost, sad. You hear me, a voice said in her mind. Not words, exactly, but concepts that her brain translated into language. The first in so very long to truly hear. Ellie gasped, stumbling backward. Dr. Mori caught her arm. What's happening? Are you all right? It's talking to me. She pressed her hands to her temples. The voice was growing stronger, clearer. Not talking. Sharing. As your kind did, long ago, before the ice claimed everything. This is impossible, Dr. Mori muttered, watching as the dragon carefully extracted itself from the excavation pit. Despite its enormous size, it moved with surprising grace, clearly trying not to damage the research equipment scattered around the site. Your crew, the ones from the floating vessel, they understood, the voice continued in Ellie's mind. When they found me, they were afraid at first. But then they listened. Really listened. And they laughed because they realized the truth. What truth? Ellie whispered aloud. That you are not alone. That you never were. Your myths, your legends of dragons and magic, they are memories, Dr. Wittmann. Genetic memories of a time when our species lived together, learned together, grew together. The dragon was fully free now, standing in the center of the excavation site. It was even more magnificent in motion, its scales rippling with inner light. When it spread its wings to their full extent, they nearly touched the walls of the dome. The ice age separated us. My kind went into the deep sleep to wait for the world to warm again. But the world changed while we slept. Your species forgot us, turned us into stories, legends. Some of us never woke at all. Military vehicles were arriving at the perimeter, their weapons trained on the dome. Radio chatter filled the bunker as commanders debated whether to engage the threat. They're going to attack it, Dr. Mori said grimly. I have to warn them that it might be intelligent. But Ellie was barely listening. The dragon's presence in her mind was overwhelming, not invasive, but vast, like trying to contain an ocean in a teacup. Through their connection, she could feel its emotions, loneliness so profound it made her chest ache, hope flickering like a candle flame, and underneath it all, a deep, abiding love for the world and everything in it. The laughter your people heard, it was joy, Dr. Wittmann. Pure joy at rediscovering connection after so long alone. Your crew understood that they had witnessed something miraculous. What happened to them? They chose to stay. To sleep as I sleep, to dream as I dream, until the world was ready for our return. They are safe, I promise you. Preserved not in ice, but in dreams of what could be. The dragon's great head lowered until it was level with the observation bunker. This close, Ellie could see every detail of its magnificent face, scales that seemed to contain entire galaxies, eyes like captured stars, and an expression of infinite patience. The time of sleeping is ending, Dr. Wittmann. The ice melts, the world warms, and consciousness stirs in the deep places. Others will wake soon. My children, my companions, my family. The question is, will your species be ready? Outside, the military commanders were losing patience. Weapon systems hummed to life, targeting lasers painting red dots across the dragon's hide. I have to go out there, Ellie said suddenly. I have to make them understand. That's suicide, Dr. Mori protested. If they start shooting. It won't fight back, Ellie said with certainty. It doesn't want to hurt anyone. It just wants to go home. Yes, the dragon's voice whispered in her mind. Home. But where is home for a creature of legend in a world that has forgotten wonder? That's when Ellie understood what she had to do. The new beginning. Ellie walked out of the observation bunker despite Dr. Mori's protests and the shouts of military personnel ordering her to stay back. The dragon watched her approach with those impossibly ancient eyes, and she felt its presence in her mind like a warm embrace. You are brave, it said. Like your crew friends were brave. I'm terrified, she admitted, stopping just a few meters from the creature's massive head. Up close, she could feel the heat radiating from its scales, see her breath misting in the warm air around it. Fear and courage are not opposites, Dr. Wittmann. They are partners in all worthy endeavors. Behind her, she could hear Dr. Mori arguing with the military commanders over radio frequencies, trying to convince them to hold their fire. The situation was balanced on a knife's edge, one wrong move, one trigger-happy soldier, and this miraculous moment would end in bloodshed. What do you need from me? She asked. Tell them what you have learned. Help them understand that this moment is not an ending, but a beginning. Your species stands at a crossroads, you can choose fear, or you can choose wonder. The dragon slowly lowered its great head until it was just arm's length away. This close, Ellie could see her own reflection in its star-like eyes, but more than that, she could see potential futures branching out like a vast tree. In some, humanity and dragonkind worked together to heal a wounded world. In others, fear and misunderstanding led to conflict and loss. "Touch my scale," the dragon said gently. "Let me show you what your crewmates saw." With trembling fingers, Ellie reached out and placed her palm against one of the creature's iridescent scales. The world exploded into light and laughter. She saw the crew of the Icebreaker 67B as they first discovered the dragon's resting place, their initial terror giving way to wonder as they realized what they had found. She felt their joy as the ancient creature shared its memories with them, visions of a world where dragons and humans had built impossible cities together, where magic and science were two sides of the same coin, where the aurora themselves danced to songs composed by both species in harmony. She understood why they laughed. In that moment of connection, they had glimpsed what humanity could become, not conquerors of nature, but partners in its endless dance of creation and renewal. The vision faded, but the sense of possibility remained. Ellie turned to face the assembled military personnel and scientists, all staring at her in a mixture of awe and terror. "Stand down your weapons," she called out, her voice carrying across the ice with surprising authority. "This creature isn't a threat. It's a teacher. A friend we forgot we had." "Dr. Wittmann, step away from the entity," came the reply over a loudspeaker. "We don't know what it's capable of." "I know what it's capable of," she replied. "It's capable of showing us who we really are. Who we could be." The dragon spread its wings wide, and Ellie felt its intention before it moved. "I must go now. My family sleeps in the deep ice, and they will need guidance when they wake. But this is not goodbye, Dr. Wittmann. This is hello after too long an absence." "Wait," she said. "How will I find you again?" "You will not need to find me. When the time comes, when your people are ready, I will find you. Until then, carry our story. Help them remember that wonder is not weakness, and that some gifts are worth the risk of believing." The dragon launched itself into the air with surprising grace for something so massive. Its wings caught the Antarctic wind, and within moments it was soaring high above the research camp. It circled once, and Ellie could swear she heard that same joyous laughter that had puzzled her for 8 years, not from the creature, but echoing from somewhere beyond the edge of hearing. Then it was gone, disappearing into the endless white of the Antarctic sky. The silence that followed was profound. Slowly, weapons were lowered. Scientists and soldiers alike stood staring at the empty space where a legend had briefly returned to life. Dr. Mori approached her carefully. "Dr. Wittmann? Are you all right?" Ellie looked around at the faces surrounding her, some skeptical, some afraid, but others bright with curiosity and hope. "I'm perfect," she said, and found that she meant it. In the weeks that followed, the official reports would classify the incident as an unidentified biological anomaly that had returned to its natural habitat. The video footage would be sealed, the witnesses sworn to secrecy, and the world would continue turning as if nothing had changed. But Ellie knew better. She had felt the dragon's promise, seen the futures that branched out from this moment. Somewhere in the deep ice, ancient minds were stirring. And when they woke, when the time was right, humanity would have to choose between the fear of the unknown and the courage to believe in wonder. She thought about the crew of the Icebreaker 67B, sleeping peacefully in their ship of ice, dreaming dreams of dragons and starlight. They had made their choice 8 years ago. They had chosen to laugh in the face of the impossible. Now it was her turn to carry that laughter forward, to help her species remember that some things were worth believing in, even when, especially when, they seemed too wonderful to be true. The ice beneath her feet hummed with ancient possibilities, and somewhere in the distance, she could swear she heard the sound of wings against the wind. The end.